Sorry.
Joey Turner
My
in
computer
the
just
comments
quit on me.
here, as he says, feels like if there are any extra spots at the end of the 53, it's got to go to the interior linebacking room. Murray, Gibbons, Campbell, Reese, Gray, Williams. That's a lot of interior linebackers, and a lot of them are performing well.
Absolutely. And that is a perfect transition for us, Joey, because that is where we're going first on the defensive side of the ball. Some thoughts on performers last night, but let's start with a clip from Brian Callahan. This is kind of a long one, but it's the best one I think we have today. I asked him a couple of questions at today's press conference. The first about James Williams, the Titans' 7th round draft pick, who showed out last night. He's my favorite of the guys that we saw last night. And just what his upside is, what traits they liked in him coming out. And the second question is about, you may have forgotten about him, CEDRIC Gray, the Titans' 4th round draft pick, asking about if there's any chance he falls too far behind, having missed a lot of this important period of training camp with that shoulder injury.
To the scouting staff and then our defensive coaches that evaluated him too, they felt like he had the traits to move into the box and play linebacker. Obviously had some development to go, but to have the foresight in the scouting process to recognize that and see it. And then, you take a 7th round pick on a guy that's got developmental potential. It's exactly what you want to do with those picks. And so really well done on the scouting staff and by our coaching staff to agree on that they saw something in him worth investing in. He's just, the thing for him is he's got to learn. He does the things really, really fast in practice, and he does a lot of really great stuff. And then he slows in the game a little bit. And so it's more just getting comfortable playing, with your eyes as a linebacker in the box. It's a different style than even what a safety does when they're down in the box. So that development will be key for him, but he's come a long way in a really short amount of time. I think Frank Bush, we're lucky to have Frank. I think Frank's is an elite linebacker coach, and I think you see that by how those guys have developed and played. And so I think Frank's a huge part of that developmental process, and James is really taken to it. So obviously a long way to go for him, but a lot of potential, I think, to be a really good inside linebacker.
And on the topic of linebacker, CEDRIC Gray is somebody that a lot of fans had high hopes for. He's been injured and not around. Is he at risk of falling too far behind in this process? What do you make of him so far?
Yeah, it's not good when you miss that amount of time. Can you make up the ground? Sure, it's not impossible. But yeah, there's a point where you'd like to see, you got to get out there and play. And I think one of CEDRIC's strengths is that he's instinctive, and just playing football is something that he's good at. And to miss 2 opportunities in the preseason to see that, I think is tough for him. The injury, you can't do anything about the injury. It's not his fault. But yeah, that's just the nature of training camp, and the nature of football is that sometimes an injury can hold you back. And the guys like James and Chance are getting a lot of opportunities to show that they're up to the task as well. So I wish we had a chance to look at him, but it's just the nature of it.
So let's tackle them one at a time. James Williams is the first guy he talked about there. And JT, the crux of my question was a couple of weeks, I think it was after last week's preseason game, Brian did, I'm not sure if James knows how good a linebacker he can be yet. And he, I think, demonstrated what that means by pointing out in this answer, there are things he does in practice that are so fast. The way that he triggers on the ball, really, really impressive. And you and I have seen that. And then he gets to the game and is slower in those same things. Maybe not as sure of himself, maybe not processing at the same speed. He's just got to get that confidence, get those veteran tendencies that you can only get with reps. I was really impressed with him again last night. I agree wholeheartedly with Brian Callahan when he says that the potential there is sky high. I don't know. I think him and Jalen Harrell, who we're going to talk about later in the show, are 2 great examples of the confidence that I have and is growing within me, that Rand Carthen really knows what he's doing when it comes to drafting these late round guys.
Yeah, I mean, through everything that has gone on over the past 2 years, like that was one of the biggest things when Rand had his introductory press conference, was how much he loves to dive into those late rounds and find the guys who are hidden gems. And I feel like 2 years later, we've kind of forgotten about that because of everything else that has gone on. But that is still what Rand Carthen's bread and butter was when he came in. And so I'm with you. I'm excited. This was technically, as Rand puts it, what felt like his real first draft. where he was
Well,
like
there was somebody
totally
else helping make the decisions the first time. So
yeah.
know.
So I think that, being able to see him find these gems like a Jalen Harrell and a James Williams, and then put him with guys who have, like he said, like Frank Bush, Denard Wilson, Chris Harris, these guys who, have some tenure and experience,
and they're developers. They're developers.
Exactly. And so that, is just does so much for some of these young players in the 6th and 7th rounds.
As for Gray, as Joey says in the comments, at this point, it'd almost be more beneficial for Gray to end up on PUP or the IR to get him a redshirt season to make the inside linebacker room easier to keep everyone. I was surprised by how candid Callahan was with that answer. Yeah, I asked him point blank, can he fall too far behind? And Callahan essentially said, maybe, kind of. Like it's not great. This inside linebacker group is maybe the most interesting in terms of projecting the roster cut down, because there are so many, and somebody said it a second ago, it was Joey as well. Joey's nailing it in the comments today. They've got like 6 deep in there, despite having a number of injuries so far that have knocked out guys that it feels like we haven't talked about in years, even though it was just last week. They're down to 6 guys that you could justify keeping all 6, because obviously your starters in Kenneth Murray and Jack Gibbons are making the team. Chance Campbell, here's another roster reality for you, by the way. Chance Campbell, another impressive night last night, flying around all over the ball. JT, he's linebacker 3, right? Chance Campbell is your linebacker 3 going into the year. I don't think there's any question about it. You agree?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think
Okay.
the first 3 are definitely kind of set in stone. It's after that where I think it gets really interesting.
Exactly. So it's those 3, and then you have to look at Otis Reese, who is hurt. It was concussion protocol, right? That he's in. Do you remember today?
I'm not
he said
sure.
it at the top of the show, and I've already forgotten. He's hurt and missing. But he had a really nice game last night. Then you've got James Williams, who is looking really good and is healthy and is young. And then CEDRIC Gray, who has not really done anything of note, but is your 4th round rookie who fans had a lot of high hopes for. We know the coaching staff had high hopes for and thought highly of him enough to make him their 4th round pick. You don't just give up on that. He's not getting cut. He's a 4th round rookie. But as Joey points out, like that's kind of on paper, a key candidate for a PUP list, IR, some kind of designation where it may be a lost portion or a lost entire year for him, just because they may not be able to justify keeping 6 guys. And right now, just in terms of guys that can help now, I don't know how you argue he's not 6 out of 6.
Yeah, just, I kind of said it earlier today. He was one of the guys who needed some development coming out. We knew, his vision and his instincts, as Brian Callahan said, are very good. And it's what makes him so fun to watch. The problem is like the other aspects of playing the linebacker position, I think are what needs to be developed for him. His ability to make tackles, his ability, in coverage as well, I think are the things you needed to see. And it's a shame, and obviously it's out of his control, but it's frustrating because this is, the guy that we thought would develop eventually into like their green dot guy who really knows how to wear it for the first time in a long time. And so, like you said, it may shake out to the point where it may be worth keeping him on PUP and IR and just getting him developed and coming back at it next year. Because like you said, you have to keep these guys. Like if James Williams, Chance Campbell, Otis Reese, these guys are going out on the field and producing. So
well, we have until Tuesday for both you and I to figure out who we think they keep and how many of them they keep. But that is an interesting group. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thanks for that.
Want more of the latest from the Hot Read podcast? Subscribe to the channel right below.
And follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram @HotReadPod for even more segments, clips, and announcements.